Hi, I'm Emma, and you're watching My Birthway. This is the 12 weeks pregnant update. Okay, there's a lot of cool things that happened this week I'm really excited about. The physical stuff is pretty much the same. I'm feeling less nauseous, more energy, especially in the morning, afternoon, and then around like dark, I kind of start to get a little like, I feel sleepy and like everything slows down, which is fine. So, the biggest exciting thing that happened this week was we went for our first actual appointment. I had talked before in a previous episode about how we went to a Meet the Midwives appointment. And I didn't mention this before, but the birth center we're using, because we're in North Carolina, we're in the Triad area, sort of, a little bit over toward the mountains. The farmer's market we go to, and where we sell our free-range pasture-raised chicken, heritage turkey, ducks, duck eggs, all of that stuff. That's in Greensboro, and that's where a lot of our stuff is that we do. But the birth center that we're using is in Statesville, North Carolina, and it's called Natural Beginnings Birth and Wellness Center. And I'm also a doula. I've mentioned this before. My doula website is ourbirthway.com. But I have been to this birth center multiple times and seen births there and seen the two main midwives in action, and I think they're amazing. And I have seen my best friends, one of my best friends, deliver two babies there, and the midwives are awesome. So I already am going into this feeling very confident about this birth center in particular, but I am super excited even now. Like, I didn't know I could get more excited about the birth center in particular, but I'm extra excited now after going. So this is almost a commercial for Natural Beginnings Birth and Wellness Center, but it's the reason I want to talk about it so much is because I believe that as a pregnant person, as a woman, you should be a really hardcore consumer. The medical care system, especially with birth, is much too up in your grill when it comes to having babies. It should not be that up in your grill. And it should all be up to you. For some reason, it's often looked at as though you are just this person that pregnancy happens to, and the medical professionals will help you and teach you how to do it. No. Nobody needs to teach you how to do it. You know how to do it. People can help educate you, and you can ask questions and get good feedback. But the biggest thing is educate yourself about how you want to have your birth, however that is. And don't just ask your doctor. That does not count as education. I respect doctors. They are well-trained. They know what they're doing, especially if it's an OBGYN, in obstetric care or in surgery, in emergency birth. But the best place to go to have a natural birth, not even necessarily a natural birth, but a normal birth that is just the way it goes, would be to the care of a midwife, because midwives view birth as a normal event that just kind of goes as usual. And in most cases, it is very normal without major complications. And then the OB or the doctor is great to have there if there's an emergency, if you need a C-section, or the baby's heart rate is super low, or all these things. But I felt very sure that I wanted to do a natural vaginal unmedicated birth from the time I can remember, and that's been confirmed to me that is the best bet for me, and the safest bet for my baby, through the work I do as a doula and all of those things. So we're super excited to be going to this birth center, where most freestanding birth centers don't offer drugs. So they have a little bit of local anesthesia if they need to stitch you up, but they don't have epidurals or different narcotics, things like that, to take away the pain per se, or numb the pain, dull the pain. They don't have that, and that I'm glad about that. I don't want that experience to be part of my birth personally. So I go into this birth center knowing that that's the way they approach things, and they are not invasive with what they ask you to do. And so we went in with kind of specific requests, and I'm sure they're used to that. But we went in because, and said, okay, we're not going to do ultrasounds. We're not doing them. And I would love to discuss this with anyone who wants to. I'm just not convinced that ultrasounds are ultimately safe. There's no studies that have been shown that they're unsafe, but there's also no studies that have been shown that they are safe. And there have been multiple animal studies, which you can't always extrapolate from animal studies, talking about the potential risks of an ultrasound. A lot of it has to do with the ultrasound, the person administering the ultrasound and how trained they are. But I'm just not comfortable with it. And same thing with the handheld Doppler device. It is pretty much just a higher powered ultrasound device for listening to a heartbeat. So we went in and, you know, very kindly said those things. And the nurse midwife that spoke with us for the longest time was like, okay, sure, I'll write it down. And then later when one of the main midwives came in, a woman who I'd met before and seen deliver a baby, she said, okay, I've got on your file that you don't want to do ultrasounds or Dopplers, so that's all set. You know, there's no argument from them. That's what's great is there's a discussion and they expect you to be a conscious consumer, which I think should be expected of everyone. Is, for me personally, this is the most important experience of my life to date. And I want to be very much in control as much as I can be, except emergencies, of the way my birth goes. And I consider myself well educated on the topic. And I would encourage everyone to do enough research that they feel well educated on the topic, whatever that means to you. So that when you speak with your care provider, hopefully you've chosen a care provider that believes that you are well educated on the topic and that you are a smart consumer and can make choices, as opposed to, oh, well, let me tell you what, you did research on the internet, therefore you're not, whatever. There's a lot of great stuff on the internet. If you're looking at, we particularly look at scholarly research in medical journals, and you can't argue with that because the medical field should follow that medical, research, but sometimes it's about a decade delayed from what the research has showed. So you never know. Some places it's not, some places it is delayed. So that's enough of my rant about the medical system, but the birth center is fantastic. We were there for like 3 hours and we talked to the nurse midwife for at least 2.5 hours. She was not in a rush. We talked about every single thing. We just had conversations. She wrote down things we liked. We discussed the idea of having some genetic testing for the baby to see if the baby had any trisomy issues, so Down syndrome of different kinds, different things like that. And she really worked with us because 2 of the possible blood tests to do, you take my blood and then they can isolate the fetal cells from that and test. 2 of the ways, the protocol is that you have to do an ultrasound with it, and she knew that we didn't want to, so she wasn't trying to push us. She just said, okay, well, let's think of what options we have here. And she spent time, left the room, came back a couple times and was like, okay, I figured out the best bet for you guys would be this other test because they don't require ultrasound and it's also more accurate. So you don't need to do the ultrasound if you get weird results because the test is like very low positive rate, if false positive rate, things like that. So that was great. And that test was called InformaSeq. Sometimes that isn't covered by insurance. So that was an issue, but that was worth it to me to do that and not have to do the ultrasounds and all that stuff. So I was super impressed by how much they just, advocated for us. We advocated for ourselves, but then they also advocated for us in the way they just approached our wishes. They just acted like, you know what you're doing. I'm just still in shock about it because that's the way it should be, but I was just so impressed. So we loved that experience. I don't love getting my blood drawn, but that happens. And they sent it off to the lab and the lady was like, you have nice dark blood. I was like, great. I was like, is that good? She was like, yeah, that means you have probably good iron levels, which turns out I think I do. Guess we'll find out. I mean, I eat a lot of meat, or I did. Who knows? We'll find out. So I don't feel concerned really about the testing, strangely enough. I think just doing it as a precaution. So we did that. And we also told them that we do not want to know the sex of the baby. We want it to be a surprise until the birth. Ideally, I would like Jason to see before anyone. Well, not see before anyone, but see and be able to tell me. But I feel like there's a chance I'll be down in there too and I'll see at the same time. But if I don't, I would like him to say, we have a blah, 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 a daughter, a son, or whatever. That would be cool. So anyway, they were really great about writing on all the files, like, reminder, they do not want to know the sex of the baby, do not want to know the sex of the baby. Remind people when you come in, say that, things like that. But they also made a point of the InformaSeq test that goes out, does test for like sex chromosome, maybe abnormalities or something, or maybe just the sex chromosomes, I don't recall. And she made a note to say, let's just omit that from the results because there isn't a point of doing those specific tests except just to find out the sex, which you don't want to do. And so that was great. And let's see. There was something else in particular that I wanted to mention about it. They are going to give us a call about what insurance, blah, 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 will cover. But even if insurance doesn't cover it all, which we chose our insurance based on the fact that it would to some degree at this birth center in particular, we will still be birthing there as opposed to any hospital unless an emergency occurs. Now, the great thing about this birth center and most birth centers is that they have to be very close to a hospital. So Natural Beginnings in Statesville, North Carolina is 4 minutes by ambulance to the hospital. I think it's 4, it might be 2. They're close. And usually in the case of most average normal births, they can kind of foresee an issue coming. It's not like a surprise major emergency at once. It's like, oh, it's looking like we're having issues. There might need to be a C-section, da, 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 da. Then they can kind of get the ball rolling on making sure. But they have a really great continuity of care where they'll go with you, they stay with you. And if for some reason you needed to go to birth at the hospital, they would go right on with you. The midwives have full privilege at the hospital that's nearby, which means they are like a doctor and they can assist you the same as a doctor in there. It's fantastic. They just would not be doing the cesarean surgery if necessary. But other doctors on call that are fantastic there would be. So we're going to do a tour of the hospital just to check it out in case I have to go. And so we're excited about that. Our next appointment was scheduled for 6 weeks from now. And they took my weight. Looks like I maybe have gained like 3-4 pounds. That's exciting. Maybe not. Who knows? I weigh so much more after I eat a meal. So I don't know. And let's see. So I think I've gained a little bit of pounds, a little bit of weight. Oh yes. Also too, they asked if, that we were going to do an internal exam, which I think in many doctor's offices, that's common practice. We had declined. We did research and looked into it, and it looks like there's actually no benefit to do an internal exam during the first trimester, because really all they're doing is looking in there and going, everything's okay. Like when you open the hood of a car and you're like, nothing exploded, things are fine. And you know, that one of the reasons they would theoretically do it would be to check to see if I had any cervical infection or anything like that, but they can also tell that via a urine culture, which of course I peed in a cup for them. So there's no reason to do it for that reason. And another reason would be some places might want to do a pap smear, which makes the least sense of all, because a pap smear, for those of you that don't know, you probably had them before in your life, is actually scraping the cells of the cervix to collect them to see if there are any abnormal cells, which now the argument is, hey, that might cause abnormal cells scraping around in there. But even if you did have a cervical issue, or worst case scenario, cervical cancer, they don't treat it until after the birth. So there is no point in knowing now, because you don't do anything about it. And I have heard and read stories of there being miscarriages after events like that. No scientific proof that this is the case after you have an internal exam, but not worth risking, in my opinion. And I feel good, and I am ready. And I, as I've said in other videos, really trust my body. And I'm willing to believe in myself and how I'm feeling. And I'm feeling good. So that was fantastic. That was great. And let's see. It's been really awesome to have told everyone. We've told people now. And emailed family members, told family members, put it on Facebook. So it is, everybody knows. Anybody can know now. And it's pretty exciting to feel like I can just discuss it if I want to, which because I kind of want to talk about it all the time. So that's how I'm feeling right now at 12 weeks, which is pretty cool. So thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And you can check out all of these videos if you go and subscribe on YouTube at Our Birthway Doula Services on YouTube. All the videos are going to be there. My experience with getting pregnant and doing it. Okay, thanks a lot, and I'll see you next week. Bye.